Hello and welcome to the Inventory Control Overview video. Card inventory is a feature that was added to MyID 12.7. Essentially, it's a reporting feature to allow you to track card stock at various locations and move that card stock between those locations. To achieve this, we've added a locations object to MyID. This represents an office or a warehouse, possibly even a mobile enrolment station like a van with a card printer in the back. These objects are extensible, so you can add additional fields to them. For example, you might want to add a geographical location. Each location can be configured with a number of minimum stock levels. Once the stock of a specific type drops below the minimum level, a report can be used to highlight this fact, and then a transfer of stock from other locations can be initiated or new stock ordered. To handle this stock, we've increased the capabilities of the import devices process. It's now accessible via operator clients and has a few more features compared to that of 12.6. To move stock from one location to another, you would initiate a transfer request. This is to say, I would like to transfer 100 devices from location A to location B, and then another operator will take care of fulfilling that request and logging which devices actually get transferred. Once that transfer is fulfilled, they can mark it as such and it can be dispatched to the relevant location. And again, this whole stock transfer process is extensible. So if you wanted to add details such as courier tracking numbers, that can be achieved. And when the stock transfer is received at the target location, the operator there has the ability to accept it or reject it. If they accept it, the devices within that transfer are marked as being at the new location. And if they reject it, various things can happen depending on how they reject it. So locations, these are a new top level object. They're manageable from the menu on the left. There is no scope control over locations. If you have access to any of them, you have access to all of them. They're extensible, which means you can use Project Designer to not only add new fields to them, but also change the form around to more meet your business goals. There is the normal searching, viewing, adding and editing of locations, which follows the same pattern as everything else via operator clients. Again, all of this is configurable via Project Designer to meet the needs of your organization. And then on the location object itself, we have a number of additional tabs, which are controlled outside of Project Designer, but are permission controlled. So you can dictate exactly which operators can see which tabs. The first is the configured minimum stock limits for that tab, for that location. The next is the current stock at that location, so you can view all the unissued devices there. And the final tab are the pending transfers both to and from that location, so you can see whether you're anticipating new stock arriving or new stock departing from that location. From there is also the ability to request stock transfers both to and from the location, and the ability to add and remove stock limits. So a stock limit is another object within MyID. This has a card stock and a location. It also has a minimum level and a reorder level. The reorder level is for informational purposes only. You might want to say whenever we drop below 20 of a certain type of card, then reorder 100. And your external systems can receive that reorder value from the reports and make that happen. When you set any values on a stock limit, it's going to overwrite any existing values in there. So you can only have one stock limit of one card stock per location. And any changes, just update that one. There's also an action to remove stock limits. Now you can still transfer stock which isn't controlled by limits to a location. That's absolutely fine. You just won't see the stock limits in the stock limit menu. When you import a device, you get to specify its initial location. This represents, for example, your card supplier supplying cards to a head office, and then from the head office you might repackage that and distribute it to your other locations using a stock transfer request. Importantly, we try to minimize the handling of these devices. What we didn't want to have to do is have you unwrap the shrink on a brick of cards and scan each card individually, and that's why we import either from the manifest file or from a programmatic range of numbers. Requesting a stock transfer is registering the intent to move a number of items from location A to location B. There's no limit on the number of items that you can request can be transferred. You can say how many you'd like, but it doesn't have to have that many to be fulfilled. Likewise, you can transfer stock to locations that don't have stock limits, just as long as it's a location registered within MyID. So once an intent has been registered to move, say, 100 items of stock item A to location B, it's someone's job to fulfill those. And here we see this being like a back office task where someone will physically put the bricks of cards into a box, parcel it up and hand it to a courier. So here we have a batch workflow within the devices section of Operator Client that allows you to search for a number of devices and then assign them to a current transfer in one go. Importantly, you can search on an import label or you can search on a serial number range. The serial number range is useful for when cards may have the number printed on them, and the import label may correspond to a sticker on the brick of cards that was specified during the device import section. So once a device has been allocated to a stock transfer, the only way to unallocate it is to cancel that transfer. There's no way to essentially take the item out of the box once it's been scanned in. Again, with stock transfers, there's no scope restrictions. As long as you have access to one location, you have access to transfer to any location. And once a card has been registered as being in the box, so registered to that transfer, we're going to link that device to that transfer request. So once the box is full and we're ready to dispatch it, a dispatch option will be available on the transfer request. It must have at least one device in there before it'll happen, but there's no other restrictions. A request for 100 devices, you could dispatch 10 or you could dispatch 200. The stock transfer request volume is purely to assist with how much should be sent as opposed to enforce it. So once you click the dispatch option, the stock transfer goes to an in-transit status. When it's in transit, it could be an internal transfer happening, or it could be sent to a third party, such as a courier, to be transferred. At that point, the next interaction with MyID is when it's received at the target destination. And from here, an operator can click receive. And in doing that, it will move all of the devices allocated from the source location to the destination location. Once a transfer has been dispatched, it's possible to then cancel that transfer. There are two ways to cancel a transfer, and you pick the mechanism you'd like by selecting the item in the drop-down menu. The default one is that the dispatch never actually happened. The courier cancelled, the cards were no longer needed, for example. When you cancel a request for this reason, the devices are released back into the card stock of the source destination and the job is cancelled. However, there is a disposal cancellation reason that's there as well. When you select this, the cards that were in the transfer are marked as disposed and will no longer be allowed to be issued on that system. This is used in the more extreme circumstances, such as a box of secure cards going missing during transit, for example, lost in the post. Yep. So once that happens, the devices in that transfer are essentially destroyed. MyID 12.7 has a number of reports within it for querying device stock and transfer requests. These are available via the reports menu and allow you to see things such as when the minimum stock level has been surpassed per location. These reports are also queryable via an API. Additionally, Project Designer can be configured to create more tailored reports for your needs. So other notes for the inventory control system. There is an existing card stock feature within MyID that's been in there for a number of years, and that is also called card stock. However, the two features are entirely separate. The existing card stock features have been hidden, but on older systems, you may still see references to them when accessing the MyID via the desktop client. The next important thing is the current location of a device does not impact the issuance of that device. What I mean by this is that the whole location feature is more of a reporting feature than an enforcement feature. If you have a card that is registered at location A, but it has somehow found its way to location B, we will not prevent its issuance at location B. However, when it is issued, it will show us no longer being available stock, and so will no longer appear on the stock list at location A. And that's the key, really. This whole feature is more for reporting than enforcing. So let's do a quick demo of how it all hangs together. Here we have MyID version 12.7. And you'll see on the left, we have 3 new items. So we have locations, stock limits, and stock transfers. But we also have, under devices, a new button here called imports. Worth stressing, all of these are permission controlled, so not every user will have access to them out of the box, and you may need to use the edit roles workflow to assign suitable permissions to suitable roles. The first thing we'll do is create 2 new locations. Location A, and you'll see these are the extensible fields. If you need to add more fields here, that is a trivial task to achieve. New one of location B. And so now when we search locations, we can see we have location A and location B, and we have some search criteria to help us find them. The next thing we want to do is to import some devices. And here I'm going to start at 100, end at 200. Let's have a prefix of location demo and a suffix of card. We shall have them as that type, and they're going to be shipped from the manufacturer to location A. I'll give them import location demo. So that's gone ahead and imported those devices. If we now do a device search, we will see those devices are in the system. And we can look at those devices and see their current location is location A, and we imported them with the location demo label. The next thing we're going to do is set a stock limit. You'll notice these have a stock code of card, Out of the box, we ship with one stock code, but you can use the list editor to add multiple stock codes as appropriate. So for adding a stock limit, we can either do it directly from this side menu here and click add, or we can go to the location we want to set it for, in this case location B, and we can click add stock limit down here. Two ways of doing the same thing, just use whichever's more appropriate for you. Important to note, when we click add stock limit down here, it'll pre-populate the current location with the one we were just looking at. And let's say we want a minimum of 10. And when we reorder, we want 100. And we'll save that. So now when we look at the location, we can see there's currently one stock limit available. If we wanted to remove it, we would click into it and then click delete stock limits. That would remove it, or we could edit the values in there to make that 20. So the current scenario then is we have 100 cards sat at location A, no cards sat at location B, and we want to request a transfer of some cards from location A to location B. There's a number of ways to do this. We could go to stock transfers and click add, where we specify the from and the to location. Or from location B, we could click transfer stock to here. And here you'll see the to location is pre-populated. Or from location A, we could do transfer stock from here, and you'll see the from location is set. Every method gets you to this screen. It's just we help you out with some pre-population. We want to go from A to B, and let's have 50. And these are project designer controlled fields for tracking the courier. They're not mandatory, so we'll leave those. So we now have a pending transfer of 50 cards from location A to B, and we can see that by doing a search. We can see that this is created. We want it to be 50 cards. And from here, we can edit it and we can cancel it. In the position where we've set up some locations, we've imported some devices at a location, and we've requested that we want 50 of those devices to be transferred from location A to location B. So now it's the job of the guy in the back office to find those 50 devices, put them in a box and dispatch them. So he does this by going to the devices section. And here we've got this handy report called available device stock. And here you can search by the current location or by the stock code or the import label. If we put the import label of, you can see we've just returned back all the items that we've just imported. And what we'll do is we'll pick the ones that we want, and it could be we want all of them. So if we go to tools and then transfer, here we get a list of all the available stock transfers that are happening. At the moment, there's only one, so we can't change it. But if there were many, this would be a drop down. And you see it's location A to B, how many units they want, and the date the request was made. We'll OK that. And this is just saying, are you sure you want to transfer these devices? We'll hit yes. And now it's just going through assigning each device to that transfer request. And that's all complete. If there were any errors and for some reason we couldn't assign a device to a transfer, it would appear in this list here, pre-selected, and we can investigate why that happened. However, all those worked. So now if we look at stock transfers. So now it's time to dispatch this stock transfer. So we hit dispatch. And now it's at the dispatch status, it's in transit. So it's in the post to location B. It arrives at location B and the site manager there marks it as received. So let's just show what he would do. He would probably look at his location, look at the stock transfers, see this one was in transit. There are multiple ways to get to this. This is just the most obvious one. From there, he would click Receive Stock Transfer. Before he does that, he would look at his unallocated stock and see he's out of cards. He would then receive the stock transfer. You'll notice the status is now received. And if he looks back at his unallocated stock, he now has the 101 devices there ready to go. And so that's an overview of the inventory control and stock management feature in MyID 12.7. If you'd like any further details on this feature and how it may be applicable to you, please get in touch. Thank you very much. Bye.